Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. With Season 2 Reloaded, we obviously got some new meta updates, some new weapon balancing here in Warzone. And something we do every single time there is a major meta update within Warzone is we go through our meta ranking, our meta tier list that features every single weapon in the game, and we reorganize the list depending on whatever the new weapon updates and new weapon changes are, right? This particular meta update here, a little bit more interesting because we, for once, don't have any real new weapons to add in. Yet, at least. There's going to be the D1.3 sector, which is going to be a special, aka it's going down really what is the niche tier, or like the trash slash viable tier. Not practically competitive by any means when that ends up dropping, but we do, however, have several weapon updates that I've got written down here over on my other monitors. So we're going to go through these one by one, break down the changes, and then what it means for the overall tier list. Then by the end of the video, we'll have an updated meta ranking. That way, if you're ever just curious as to what weapons you want to look out for, if you've got your own preferred build for certain weapons, but you want to know which ones to look out for, or you're looking for the list of weapons you probably want to rank up, maybe you're newer, I'll leave a link to my full-on updated tier list down in the description below. We are here on COD Community. Huge shout out to COD Community for having this super easy, accessible feature here. But getting right into the patch notes, first up, the AK-74, an already absolute meta option, gets even better because they buffed the range and the long range damage on it. Now, it's still difficult to use. It's got way more control than these other meta rifles like the Model L, the AIMs, you know, so on and so forth, the Krig, but it hits so hard. Like, if you can control it, and if you go through and just focus on recoil attachments, especially with Gunfighter, you're going to be fine. The thing is going to melt. By far one of the, if not the best rifle and long range options in the game. Now, one I'm honestly pretty happy with is the Cypher. This ended up getting some updates here, and with this now, in my opinion, it's a new absolute meta rifle because they ended up buffing the range and then also the leg multiplier as well. It was already super easy to use, just a little bit, you know, behind some of the other rifles when in terms of like the drop off and stuff, but now it's easy to use. It's got great range, a fast TTK throughout. It's good for sniper support, for long range. Like, it's a do-it-all rifle. Might be the new most reliable option in the game here. So definitely very excited to utilize the Cypher a bit more. Nice to see that that's now a true top tier contender. Now, the Krig honestly has been borderline absolute meta slash meta conversation just because its feel is a little bit different. It's a little bit more clunky than some other rifles, but it's got good stats. Like, its range and its TTK are solid, and its range got buffed and its TTK got buffed via the leg multiplier as well, which is nice to see. So it's going to stay in absolute meta now. It's just one that's more so feel based. Some players really like it. Like, I don't mind it too much, especially again if you build out for control. Other players not as much of a fan, but there's no denying the objective stats with it are very, very competitive throughout. Now, unfortunately, the Model L does see some changes here. It got a close damage nerf, but a long range damage buff. Then also its leg multiplier, its torso multiplier, and its velocity all got nerfed. So this goes from being, in my opinion, an absolute meta option to really one that's just more of a meta contender. It's right there, it's close, but it's certainly not going to be the objective #1 option. It's still going to be a really easy, really reliable choice, but if you're looking for what's going to get you the kill the quickest, or, you know, the most straightforward, there are options here that I think are going to be a little bit more reliable. It's close, but that is definitely going to be a nerf that does knock it down a tad bit. Now, the XM4 is the next option here, and quite frankly, this one got hit hard again with nerfs. Long range damage got nerfed. Its torso multiplier, its arm multiplier got nerfed. Then also ended up getting nerfs to the 100 round mag again as well. That's going to be slower. Balanced stock isn't as good. Quite frankly, the TTK here is just not really all that great anymore. I would drop it down really into the contenders category. Not even in the true meta conversation. It's just a contender. It's viable. It's practical. It'll be decently competitive because it's so easy, but definitely not a top tier rifle anymore by any means, which is pretty surprising. And by the way, as we are breaking down all the weapons and updates here today, if you enjoy the video, you find the info helpful, a like rating is always seriously appreciated. And if you're new to the channel, you want to guarantee that every single day you're in the know for all things going on in COD, feel free to hit that subscribe button, turn on those post notifications. I always got you covered with news, updates, patch notes, meta breakdowns. It's all here. And of course, we are getting closer and closer to reaching 1 million subscribers. Now, the GPR, they just buffed some of the attachments. Like, for instance, the CHF barrel is going to be a little bit better now. It's still going to be a decently versatile rifle and just in the meta conversation, but not a super standout-ish one compared to some of these other top tier absolute meta choices. Good, but not great. Now, the C9 and absolute meta SMG, maybe the #1 sub for the past half season or so, did see a slight nerf to its ranges, then also its velocity. Not going to knock it out of absolute meta, but it is going to be a bit more in line with some other subs, and there's going to to be a tighter competition there. That's good, and that parity, quite frankly, is a good thing, so that's not a terrible nerf by any means. The Compact, another SMG that's already in absolute meta, also got buffed again. Its range is better now, its ADS speed is better, and its torso and arm multipliers got buffed. A great SMG just got stronger. This thing is truly in the contention for being the new #1 SMG in my opinion. A little bit bummed on this one. The PP919 ends up getting dropped down a tad bit here because they ended up nerfing its range and its mid to long damage. So its mid range was not that great before. Its close range TTK wasn't super fast, but it was competitive enough. But now though, it drops off really, really hard after that close range. So really, I'd say this is more of a conversationally meta option. You know, it's close, but it's definitely not going to be an absolute meta choice anymore. The Compact, the C9, other SMGs are going to offer more. Still super easy to use though, and I think a lot of people will still rely on it for that fact. Now the GPMG, which is in our contender category, got a close damage nerf, but then a long damage buff, also torso and leg multiplier buffs and an ADS speed buff. That's nice, but it's still not going to be super consistent as an LMG, so it's just going to stay in the contenders category currently. It would need a couple more damage buffs and probably some range upgrades too if it were to ever jump up into the true meta conversation. The Fang in general basically just got more movement buffs, so it's more aggressive overall. That's nice, but this is truly like a long range exclusive LMG. It's TTK before its last damage range. It's not all that great, but then it becomes really competitive, so movement buffs are nice, but that's not going to attack where it's going to be utilized the most, so doesn't really change it all that much outside of what it does for the multiplayer meta, which is completely separate. Now the AEK 973 full auto mod is really what I want to base this ranking off of now, because that's the best version of the gun. This was previously, or currently I guess, in trash tier, but the full auto mod got some buffs. Its damage is better, its range is better now, and the extended mag is better too. So I think this one jumps up a tad bit here. It's not going to be an absolute meta conversation option by any means. However, it is something that is worth, I think, using, especially if you're a solo player. It's something that I think is in the meta conversation. Not necessarily the #1 greatest thing ever, but it's pretty solid if you know what you're doing with it, especially if you're not fighting too many enemies at the same time. Also, while we're at it, we've yet to rank the TR2. This, unfortunately, is not going to be as strong. This probably lands more so in the contenders category compared to anything else, just with its mediocre performance across the board. Strong, but not going to stand out in any specific way. The SWAT 556 got a burst delay buff, so it shoots a little bit faster now. Not going to do that much for it though, all things considered. Its TTK should be a little bit better if you're landing multiple shots in a row, but that's not going to be like a major game changer. The Sarkov also got a responsiveness buff. Basically, it's going to be more precise when you're spamming the trigger to not accidentally shoot more shots than what you're spamming. It doesn't really change, again, its meta placement whatsoever. And then lastly, the SVD got a long range damage buff, and then a torso multiplier buff, a leg multiplier buff, and a velocity buff. But it's still the SVD at the end of the day. So it's got a long way to go before I'm ever going to talk positively about this thing, both personally and objectively. It's just not it. It's not as trash as it was before, but it's still pretty trash. And that's generally where the meta falls right now. I will say, I think I'm going to knock the Victus down just because the LR762 and the Frostline, I'm choosing every single day of the week over the Victus. Still a good sniper, but not on their level. But that's generally how the meta plays out right now. This update didn't do too much in the way of like, we have an insane new meta, everything is different, but it does tighten the competition between the main categories being rifles and SMGs mostly, and that's what you can see comprises most of the absolute meta, right? There's a lot of contenders there that are super close to being very, very good. Some of these MW3 options are going to be feeling better because of the inherent changes they made there too. So it's a step in the right direction, but it's not going to be like a completely game-changing meta update by any means. Very curious to see what happens in Season 3 though, which unless we see any other major surprise meta updates will be the next time we look at this list. So stay tuned for that, but that's going to wrap things up. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to drop a like on it. And if you're new here, feel free to hit that subscribe button, turn on those post notifications so that every day you are in the know for all things going on in COD. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you later. Peace out.